Hey there, all things MSP crew. We are back again with another vendor update. This time I have Nicholas Reimer from Alternative Payments. Nicholas, how you doing today?
Yeah, hi Eric. Thank you very much for having me on, and pleasure to meet the rest of the community here. Hopefully, I can kind of share a little bit about our company and how we've been able to help some MSPs with their accounts receivable.
Awesome. So I guess we'll start out with an introduction of you. How did you kind of get into this space? What made you look at MSPs as a potential partnership for this?
Yeah, great question. And I always try to be really upfront because this MSP space is a tough one to break into, and people can kind of smell out the outsiders pretty quick. So I am a bit of an outsider. I'm relatively new to the industry, but I have a unique experience in that I grew up in a very kind of entrepreneurial family. And my dad had a storage business that required like a very high degree of like custom software in order to track all the assets of the warehousing business. And, I kind of grew up watching him build this stuff from scratch and got this appreciation for how much, businesses like his rely on these really strong IT fundamentals. And that, there was no opportunity for him to really grow his business unless he had this really kind of strong IT framework. So it's an adjacent kind of experience of basically being appreciative of what MSPs do. And now in my current role in kind of partnerships, I find myself getting to talk to, our 700 customers on a regular basis and hear about, their particular struggles and, the work that they do to help their customers. And it's really exciting, and it's been an interesting journey to arrive here. And I'm excited to be kind of a long-term part of it, hopefully.
Yeah, I think actually that's really good experience to bring to what we do in this space, because basically what you're using is you're leveraging technology to help a small business do the work that they do better and more efficiently so that they can grow or become more profitable, because some of them don't grow. They just desire to be more profitable, right? So I think that gives you the right perspective for kind of the problems that MSPs face. And, I think it's great that you're bringing a solution to this space that helps them with something that is probably not on their radar on a regular basis. So tell us a little bit about what alternative payments does.
Yeah, certainly. So alternative payments is really focused on the accounts receivable side of the workflow for MSPs. We work with 600 to 700 different MSPs across North America, and we're on track to process $1 billion of payments by the end of this year. And what we're doing there is we're really just trying to finish that last line of you found the customer, you secured the customer, you signed an MSA or an agreement. How are you going to get paid for the next 12 months of that agreement? And that's where we kind of jump in and help automate as much of the process as humanly possible, and then lower the costs associated with processing so that you don't feel like you're getting pulled into dealing with all these kind of manual accounting workflows, or that you're getting gouged by really high credit card processing rates or something like that. This is really important because it frees up more opportunities to get after those tickets and do the thing that I find most MSP owners really love to do, which is finding the hardest, most complex, crazy problem and then fixing it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned something that I want to dig into a little bit, and that is you more or less try and automate the entire accounts payable process. And I think that's something that MSPs either struggle with because it's outside of their normal scope, right? Or worse yet, they tend to ignore, and that causes its own set of problems. So, kind of describe how that process works from, I guess, maybe a lens of business process rather than just a payment processor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really important is we really don't see ourselves as a payment processor alone. We really do see ourselves as this accounts receivable solution that's specific to this MSP space. And so in order to do that, we have to have these like really powerful integrations to the tools that lead to the information that we need, which are your PSA and your accounting software. And so that's kind of a unique thing for this workspace. And I think the North Star, as the industry has moved away from the old break fix model, where you're kind of having these really sporadic revenue because you have a great customer, but you fix their problem, that's now over. And so as we've now moved to this recurring revenue model, the real dream is that you have your powerful PSA that's built the way you want it, and you're able to create a quote, send that to a customer, they approve it, and they pay for it right then and there. And then now we have them sign the contract. And once they enter the payment workflow, we've got all the information needed to bill them reoccurringly on an agreed upon date from an agreed upon account for the entire length of the agreement. And so, in this version of it, you're removing all of the manual labor of, we need to make sure we send an invoice out to so and so because it's that day of the month, and we're on month 6 of the 12-month contract.
So I assume this means that you also integrate with several of the tools that they're already using. I would say primarily their PSA tools. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Our PSA integrations are key, and they were some of the most important work that we've done to build out our tool. And we're really proud of it. We were one of the first people, for example, to be a payment integrator for Halo PSA. And, we also work with Autotask, SuperOps, ConnectWise, and, many others.
Well, that's awesome because I know a lot of times there's this disconnect between their PSA and contracts and payments and all that kind of thing. A lot of times maybe there's an integration with their accounting package, but that doesn't really solve all of the problems that can arise from accounts receivable. Now, accounts receivable, one of the big things is once the invoice has gone out, getting paid is another part of the story, right? It just starts with getting the invoice out. So is there anything that you guys do in terms of sending out reminders, monitoring that, notifying the MSP of maybe, receivables that have gone out a little too far?
Yeah, yes to all of the above. I think you're right on the money. I would say on the biggest picture, we're really focused on this accounts receivable portion, and we think that one of the best outcomes that we can provide is, essentially reducing people's days outstanding, which is a direct reflection of cash flow. And so the industry average right now is 30 plus days of, DSO, which is really high. And so our company average for customers on our platform is closer to 6 to 7 days. And so if you're able to get paid that many days quicker or faster, that cash inflow effect on your cash flow is really, really high. And so a lot of that is done, just like you said, by these email reminders where, it's not just the one reach out. It takes a couple efforts sometimes for certain customers, especially those that aren't on, those kind of rock solid MSA agreements. And, we have all of those automation and tools built into our platform, and they can all be tailored to fit different customers. We also have this really exciting stuff we're working on from an AI perspective, where hopefully we can automate even further while still bringing a really high level of customization to it without a lot of input from the customer.
Okay. So in terms of maybe some best practices that MSPs should be looking into, what is the best, in your opinion, which I'll say is an expert opinion because, this is what you do. What is the best form of payment for an MSP to try and get when it comes to their recurring contracts?
Yeah, great question. So I think the hope is that you have this really great contract that spells out exactly what is going to be expected for your payment terms moving forward. And so if I use the example of like a 12-month agreement, that agreement will hopefully say, hey, so-and-so, we are going to pull this amount of funds from this bank account on this day. And you agree to that at the very beginning of our relationship. And if you're able to establish that, then you can input that essentially into our system and then let it run and never worry about it again. And the only thing you need to worry about is just providing the service to those folks. And then, of course, making sure that they sign up for the next 12 months. And so then when the customers are doing that, they're not concerned about, following up with email reminders because all of that's being taken care of by the fundamental nature that you set up at the start. Now, for the folks that fall outside of that, then the key is to be creating options and a really easy user experience. And so the attitude I have is if the process to pay your bill as an MSP isn't as easy as buying a laptop on Apple's website store, like there's your gold standard. That's what you need to fix. Because, if that checkout experience is clunky or feels outdated or requires extra steps, you're going to have people kind of push it off. And worst case Ontario, they're going to pull out the checkbook and they're going to be writing out a manual check to you. And once that happens, you're probably going to be getting checks for the next 12 months and it's really not going to be fun.
Yeah, of course, especially in this day and age, right? Because again, it affects cash flow. Now, you mentioned something that I'm kind of passionate about, and that is the experience, right?
Yes.
So, what do you guys do to create that better experience around the client paying their bill?
we're hyper fixated on the least number of clicks humanly possible and just the most thoughtful design possible. It should be a very clean experience. There should be a high level of trust because we're dealing with payments. And one of the ways that we build trust is we try to white label the experience as much as we can. So, if you're have MSP ABC, we want to have your logo on that client portal so that they know, oh yes, this ties back, I'm in the right place. We also even, have a color code scheme to match your company's colors, things like that. And those all help to build trust with the customer. And then the fewest clicks possible is going to get them through that so that they don't drop off and that they pay their bill right when they get it instead of, on that third or fourth email reminder.
So if I'm an MSP, what are the top 3 things that our alternative payments is going to do for me to improve my business?
Oh, great question. It does really depend on how you have your things set up. But I would say, number one, our hope is that we're going to be able to automate a huge chunk of your workflow so that you can save 8-10 hours a month and put that labor into a different part of the business where, it can be dedicated to improving the quality of your customer relationships that much more. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to provide your clients more options to pay their bill so that they pay their bill faster and they feel kind of more trust with you and more ease overall. And so that's going to be not just credit cards, but it's going to be credit cards, ACH bank transfer, and even a financing option so that customers can pay in installments for bills that are outside of the norm. We got 10 new computers that have to be bought, and it's going to go well beyond your regular kind of billing cycle. And so by providing all 3 of those different options, we're going to make customers really happy and build more trust between you and them. The third piece of it all is that because we're going to present all those options, I think we're going to be able to drive a much lower processing cost overall so that instead of those high credit card fees that you might be absorbing, now you have the ability to pass them on since you've got these other options to present. And also we're just going to be more competitive overall on that front.
Awesome. Well, Nicholas, if somebody wants to find out more about alternative payments, how do they do that?
Yeah, well, they can email me directly at nicholas@alternativepayments.io. They can visit our website to learn more and kind of book a demo with our sales team. We're really lovely folks. It's not a high pressure sales tactic. You can use it as an opportunity just to kind of get some feedback and learn more. We do have this unique position where we get to work with, a huge number of MSPs. So, we can always be a sounding board and give suggestions on how those folks have their workflows and so forth. So, and I'm there. Hopefully there'll be like a link of sorts attached below this as well, where you can get that information as well.
Awesome. Well, Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me today. And hopefully we'll do some more stuff in the future.
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. Pleasure to meet you. And I love all the work that you and Justin do on the podcast and the community. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you.